Well, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Reinvention Made Simple Daily. My name is Kamoya Benjamin, and it is my purpose to help leaders reinvent themselves for more impact and more income. And there's always a process for really, getting more income and impact in your life. In my journey, my reinvention journey, what I've found and learned also from the masters is that you've got to master your identity. You've got to master your brilliance. You've got to know who you are. You've got to know your value. You've got to know what you carry. You've got to know what you bring to the table. All right. That's an impact conversation as well as an income conversation. The next thing is you've got to be able to manifest that brilliance out there into the world. I've shared in another session that I hate the word potential. You know, people who've been told you've got great potential, but you can't see that potential manifested in their life in any way. So there's a process for manifesting that brilliance. And once you manifest that brilliance, you definitely want to earn your worth. You want to get paid more for what you bring to the table, for your value. And that's the third M, monetize your brilliance. And so the process of mastery, manifesting, and monetizing is one that I guide you through so that you can reinvent yourself for more impact and income. And it's in all the five domain areas of your life. Now, today, we're diving in onto a topic around the mastering your brilliance, and it's around identity. It's around really articulating who are you. I know that if you're watching me, you've asked yourself this question at one point in your life. Who am I? I know that question has crossed your mind. Who am I? Now, I don't know what answer you gave to that question, but it came from within you. A desire to really articulate and define ourselves. It's a fundamental question of life. Who am I? As we grow through life, we get to a point where we really are asking ourselves, who am I? Either seeking to want to differentiate ourselves from others, or really just finding, what makes me tick? What is it that what is it I'm about? Am I just another floating butterfly? A butterfly, by the way, is very beautiful. So they're going to come out based on the caterpillar and how it looks like. I mean, or the other is, am I just another tree or thing just floating here in space, adding no value and consuming a lot of oxygen? We all want to mean something. We all want to count for something. And it's a fundamental question of life. It's the question that comes from within us so that we can fully express ourselves and impress our uniqueness on the earth. So it's a fundamental question. And if you've not been able to articulate the answer to the question, who am I? When you ask yourself, or people ask you, who are you? Then you're going to face a lot of frustrations in life, especially when it comes to the reinvention question. You might find that you've been taken advantage of. You might find there are people who know what you have and they utilize it for their purpose. They see, wow, this guy does this so well. They bring you in and they say, I want you to do this. And they take advantage of you. Literally take advantage, abuse, and misuse you because you do not know what you have. Everybody else can see it. They tell you you've got great potential. And so today we want to really spend some time articulating the answer to the question, who are you? It's an identity question and it's a fundamental question. At the end of this session, I desire that you would come out with an insight, an awareness, an aha, wisdom that will help you navigate your reinvention journey. So let's get into it. And the first thing that I would like for you to reflect on is, up until this point when you've asked the question, who am I? Or someone has asked you, who are you? What answer did you give? What answer did you give? I remember when I was asked this question the very first time, who are you? I was stuck. I went inside and I couldn't find the answer. And do you know the places where we go to answer that question? It's one of these three areas. And I'm going to give them to you shortly. But where is this coming from? Why are we seeking to answer that question from one of these three sources? It's because when we are growing up, we are socialized. Society tells us that this is what it is to be a good man or a good woman. Society indicates to us that this is what success looks like. Society gives us parameters. It's almost like there's a code book and a rule book that society gives you that tells you this is what it is to become a person. I've shared with you the story of how my mom at 8 years old, when we were in our kitchen, she looked at me straight in the eye and she said to me in native language, "Wetu emodo," translated, "Make yourself someone." And I shared how that as I went into really understanding who is someone so that I can become them, I picked from one of these three sources. I picked from what society defines, and therefore I drew my identity upon that. And maybe, like me, you have based your identity around one of these three areas. Now, before I get into those three areas, let's talk about the sources of identity. One is a socialized mind, okay? One is a socialized mind, what I'm talking about, society. The second one is, religion or faith. If you, come across people of faith, and I am one, and you work with people who are disciples and followers of Jesus Christ, and you ask them, who are you? They will probably run to that. And it's also among one of these three sources. Okay, it's one of these three areas. And they will run to that and they will say something like, I'm a child of God. I am forgiven. I am, and they'll go on and on and on and on. And they'll give you a definition that is around those religious lines. Yeah, I'm not here to contest that. It has its place, definitely, granted. There are other sources of identity, and I want to go to the three areas that I was talking to you about right now. The three main areas where we draw our identity from is these three R's. The first one is results. The second one is relationships. And the third one is reason. From when we are young, we're socialized and we are indoctrinated to identify ourselves with one of these three things: results, achievement, performance, success, being number one, being the best, beating your opposition, beating the bully. Anything that just makes you come on top is celebrated by parents, by society. And whenever we're connecting with our uncles over the holidays, they're asking you, what number did you become? What is your score in mathematics? What is your score? And by the way, these are important things. You need to really, score your A's. I mean, get good at that stuff. Get good at that stuff. The problem is that we quickly identify that, wait a minute, I'm defined based on my performance. I'm defined based on my achievement. I'm defined based on the results that I get. Then who am I? I am that guy who gets A's. I'm that guy who does this. I'm that guy who's good in football. And we realize this is what society identifies with, and we take it upon ourselves and we use it to define ourselves. Most of the time, if you meet people in a room for networking, dinner, or whatever forum you're connecting with people, hey, tell me a bit about yourself. Who are you? People say, I'm the manager in this bank. I'm an engineer. I am, and they give you something that is connected with their results, with their achievements, with their performance. That has its place, but it's not who you are. That's what you do. That's not who you are. Before you are an engineer, before you are a banker, before you are whatever it is that you use to define yourself based on your career, before I get up and tell people I'm a coach, before I was a coach, a trainer, and a speaker, who was I? And that's what I want us to go into today as we define ourselves in that way. The second wrong way to actually define ourselves is to use a relationship. Many times in my coaching sessions, I ask people, who are you? And they'll say, I am a mother, I am a brother, I am a father, I am a husband, I am a daughter, I am a sister, all those stuff, including part of the religious stuff is I am a child of God. Yep, that has its place. We're not saying that you're not those things, but that's not the answer that we're looking for when we ask you the question, who are you? The question of identity comes from within to really identify our uniqueness. And before you are a mother, sister, brother, cousin, uncle, dad, husband, whatever that may be, you are someone. You are someone. And it's important for us to articulate that and not hide behind the relationships that we have in life. Again, society tells us that who you know, who you're connected to, the name that you drop at any given time kind of identifies you with someone and gives you some leverage and mileage. We're seeking that mileage. We're seeking to identify ourselves with something or with someone. So what do we use? Relationships. Again, an insufficient source of identity. Let's go to the third one, reason. Reason has got to do with intellect. It has got to do with smartness, sharpness. It has got to do with being book smart or being just brilliant in one way or the other. From when we are growing up, we're really told, hey, get A's in maths, get A's in every subject. And we pursue that. And you see that the guy who gets number 1, number 2, number 3, those people are really celebrated. And the rest of you, you're just here to fill the bus. But we celebrate the number 1. We celebrate the number 2. We celebrate the number 3, even in sports. Now, there has to be a measure of, performance in one way or the other. But the question is not whether we celebrate the number 1, 2, and 3. The question is, what do we do with those who are from number 4 all the way to number 37? Do we take a moment to identify what it is that they're good at? What is it that they bring to the table? But because those are the cues that we're picking up as we grow up, we quickly identify that reason, intellect, is a key thing to define myself around. And so we pursue it. And when people ask us who we are, we give them that number in intellect. I am the number 1. I am the greatest. I am the smartest. I am the. Again, it's intertwined between the results that we get, the relationships that we have, and the reason that we've developed. Again, those things have their place in life, but they are insufficient sources of identity. They're insufficient sources of identity because this is the flip side of using those as a source of identity. If you are not really good in maths, if you're not really book smart, if school is not really happening for you, and those are the only parameters that you've seen in life as being a source for identity, the narratives that begin to go on in your mind is that I am no one because I don't get A's. If relationships are not something you have, if you're not connected, if you're not networked like other people are, then what narrative goes on into your mind is that, again, I am no one because in comparison to so and so, who am I? I'm a nobody. You've heard people define themselves like that. I'm a nobody. Are you a nobody? I don't think so. No one is. Again, it's an insufficient source of identity when we use results and performance to really kind of identify ourselves because it's insufficient. You are who you are without the results, without the relationships, and without the reason. Who you are is not to be challenged. It is not to be challenged. It is not to be questioned. And it is my purpose today to support you in identifying a credible source of identity to answer the question, who am I? And to respond to those who ask, who are you? And here it is. At the age of about 19, I got to the place where I realized that the statement that my mom had given to me, make yourself someone, I had pursued it significantly, to a large extent, to pursue results, because I know people who had achieved results and they were someone, they were celebrated. And so I pursued results. I started an advertising agency and I was very successful. I started bus advertising, pioneered it in East Africa, in Kenya, in the East African market. And I was very successful. I got clients, I pushed it, and I got paid a lot of money. At the same time, I began to pursue relationships. I endeared myself to people so that they could love me, like me, and accept me. I wanted approval. I wanted them to say that I am someone. And I licked their boots, and I went beyond borders so that they could love me, accept me, and say, that's the guy. And I also pursued reason. I went to school because I wanted to say, hey, look here, I have a master's. Hey, look here, I'm learned. Hey, look here, I know this. Hey, look here, I'm a master at this. Again, key things to achieve in life. but not a sufficient source of identity. I got to the point where I realized that those three measures, results, relationships, and reason, they were not sufficient to identify myself. Because I noticed that whenever I failed, I lost my identity. I became my failure. I became my failure. I became my failure. Whether in school, I became my failure in results in business, and I became the rejection story. And I took that on with me. That's why it's insufficient. But through that process, I was very fortunate to connect with mentors who gave me books by John Maxwell, and I began to read the 21 Laws of Leadership. I began to define the leader within me. And this is one of the things that came up for me very strongly in that study. That I have strengths, that I am gifted, that before I was conceived in my mother's womb, I was a concept in the mind of God. I was a concept in the mind of God. That he knew who this guy is, what this guy should do, and therefore I was fitted with every resource, fitted with every ability to execute upon that assignment, mandate, agenda, calling, whatever you want to call it. And that took me down a path to really identify who I am at the core. What are my patterns? What are my patterns? What are my patterns? What is it that makes me tick? What is it that makes me excited? What am I drawn towards to do? What do I do with the least effort? I began to identify my patterns. I began to identify what I'm good at. Because remember, function always precedes design. Function always precedes design. What do I mean by that? I mean that before we decide to build something, we're always brought to that point of creating and designing by a need. The need for something, the function that we want it to perform, the problem that we want it to solve comes before we design the thing. We never design something as human beings and then ask the question, what are we going to do with this thing? Can we get guys on a 4-day seminar? Let's get into breakout groups and look at it and then imagine what we're going to do with this thing. Never. There's always a need. There's always a function that we want this. There's a function that we need carried out. There's an outcome we want to create. And so that outcome dictates the design. And so before I was born, before you were born, if you will go with this philosophy with me that you are known, that you are known, that you are a concept. You are a concept in the mind of God. If you do not believe that, I do not know what other thing will give you a sufficient source of identity other than that. Where did you come from? Where did you come from? Are you a mistake? Are you an accident? I don't think you are. I think that fundamentally you were known, a concept in the mind of God before conception happened. And by the time we got here and we received you and held you in our arms and we said, wow, look, beautiful baby. You are already fitted. Function precedes design. You are known. And so I find a sufficient source of our identity to be identifying who we are even before we get results, even before we get relationships, and even before we get reason. And again, we'll go back to those three, but not so that we can define them, ourselves against them, not to define ourselves against them, but to find achievement data, to find evidence that this I do well, this I do not struggle to do. I'm already equipped and fitted to do this. The same way, when you open a drawer and you have a ripe mango in your hand, you do not look for the most blunt thing in there. You look for a knife. And when you look at a knife, it has been designed a way that suggests that this sharp edge is supposed to cut something. The same thing with a spoon. You're not going to, drink your soup using a fork. You'll never achieve it. The fork is designed in such a way that it can stab something and hold it, put it into your mouth or wherever you want to take it. A spoon has been designed in such a way that it has a depression, so that once you put something inside, it holds as you bring it into your mouth. Everything has been designed, and the design suggests that it is equipped for certain things. It does this well because it is equipped to do that. So as human beings, what we're doing is we are going back into our leadership timeline and looking at when I was 3, when I was 4, when I was 5, when I was 6, when I was 7, when I was 8, 9, 10. Now that I'm 50, if I look back into my life, I will find tons of achievement data, results. I did well here. I did well here. I did well here. Okay, let's collate all those patterns together and ask the question, what does this mean? Who does this? This is a communicator. I remember when I was 3, and I went to boarding school when I was very young. I think I had not yet matured to get into boarding school, but my late dad felt that Naivasha Boys Boarding Primary School, shout out to all Naivasha Boys Boarding guys. My dad felt that, this was the school at the time, definitely was. And he was exiting. He was in his reinvention journey, exiting as a teacher and going into a different industry. And he felt that he needed to get me in there. My brother was already in Naivasha boarding, and so I went in, and I guess I was a little bit young. But guess what I was doing during prep time? I was standing on the desk. By the way, I have no recollection of that story. I was standing on the desks and I was entertaining people. Guess who always made it to the noisemakers list? Yours truly. Do you see where the gift is? There is a pattern in your life that just says, this is who you are. 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 And when I look at what I did in school, I was in the drama club. When I look at what I did in school, I was in the art club. I was drawn to creativity. I was drawn to communication. I was in the debate club. I'm just doing me. I'm just doing me. I had never listened to something like, I'm just doing me. I'm just being me. Just like you, it's just who you are. You just did those things. And so now the key idea here is not to use those accomplishments as a way to define who you are, but to identify the core gifts, strengths, abilities that power that thing which you did. I was in the debate club not because I am a debater, but because I'm a communicator. I was in the drama club and did very well, not because I am a dramatist, whatever they call them, but because I'm a creative. I was recording, using a camcorder, recording in church where I was and volunteering those gifts without having ever gone to school. Not because I'm a videographer, but because I'm a creative. I was out there playing drums in the church and I had never gone to drum school because I'm a creative. And the moment I got a laptop and a computer and I began to work on Corel Draw, it just came easily for me to design flyers, graphics, logos, posters, flyers, all those things. I designed them easily. There was flow, not because I'm a designer, but because I'm creative. There's a spring. There's a spring of creativity. That it doesn't matter which area I go into, I will flourish, I will thrive, because I am a creative. Now, that's the same thing that I'm encouraging you to do. Define yourself, not based on your accomplishments, but based on the skill, talent, ability that powers that accomplishment. Because if I define myself today as a videographer, I will not be a videographer forever. My role actually has changed significantly. And the different roles that I have played, if you look at the different business cards I have held all my life, all those business cards read something different. But there's one skill that has powered all those things: communication. I am a communicator. That is who I am. That is what I was created to do. That is what was fitted within me. That is what was coded within me. I am. Who are you, Benjamin? I am a creative communicator. Those are the top two skills, talents, abilities, strengths, whatever you want to call them, that power every expertise that I bring into the world. And that is a sufficient and reliable source of your identity. So let's go back. Let's go back and find the evidence. Let's go back and identify what it is that we're good at. And again, I'm always happy to support you and others that come alongside me on this path as I mentor them into going back and really identifying what is the achievement data in my life? What are my motivational patterns? I help you define, who you are based on the skills, the strengths that power your expertise. Because as we are talking about in the reinvention journey, it is who you are, mastering that, getting good at it, being the best at it, that leads you then to manifest it into the world and being sought after because you're the best in that area. If it relies on those key strengths and abilities, you will beat anyone hands down any day. And as you manifest that, people say, wow, that's brilliant, because you have mastered it. You've mastered it. This is a different level of awareness in terms of understanding what you carry and what value it brings to the table. And that value is then translated into an outcome. And that outcome is what you get paid for. And that is monetizing your brilliance. Again, I'm more than happy to support you. Reach out to me, reinvention@kamoe.com. Reinvention@kamoe.com. And I will support you in the journey to creating the outcomes that you know are possible through you and for you. Right on. Thank you so much, Benjamin Kamoe, here to support you and guide you through this journey, right? Reach out to me, reinvention@kamoe.com, and I'll be happy to support you through your journey to master your brilliance, to manifest that brilliance, and to monetize it out here into the world. Blessings. Be well. I'll see you tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. East African time. Come ready. Let's grow together. Manifest your brilliance.